about him, because I didn't see him.
Unfortunately, I didn't see him either, so I have not so much to say. What only I know is that we were together in Korea last week, so I think I think he might have choose to stay home. I hope he will maybe connect during the meeting. I'll try to get a hold of him and see if he can connect.
But maybe, Marco, I think that most of the people know about AgriVolution. Maybe you can.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
You're perfectly right. Well, yes, Charlie is the Secretary General of AgriVolution. AgriVolution is the worldwide organization of agriculture and machinery, representing the producers of 13, if I recall well, 13 federation of producers that goes from Argentina to South Korea, and from England to Turkey, Iran, Japan, India, China, etc., etc. So it's quite a big organization for sure. It's an alliance. It's not already a federation. So that means it hasn't a formal organization yet, but that's only because we want to keep it flexible and simple. It represents all the major agricultural areas, I would say, and the producers obviously in these areas. And it's the main role of AgriVolution is to put in contact people from this different part of the world, try to share statistic data. We have a newsletter that we hand out every 6 months, and it's a huge organization, but extremely fragile at the same time, because such big organization they're always subject to the changement of the situation, the person, etc. So we have to keep it as a little toy, but very, very fragile. CIMA, the European Confederation, is member of this organization, just like Federacoma and all the other European organization. And we try to we founded in 2000. Well, the first meeting was in 2008, and then it became an alliance in 2010 or 11, something like that. And it's really something that I care very much, because I think it's really worth it to have this exchange in this world and to have the possibility to know what is going on either in Japan or what is going on in Argentina exactly at the same time from the direct actor. This is the main role of AgriVolution, and I hope that Charlie will get a hold of us today, and he will be better explaining what his exact role is as far as concerned the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco. Yes, these are the 6 new full members. Really welcome to all of them. I really believe that they can contribute in growing the Club of Bologna. So we expect a lot from all the new full members. Really welcome to all of you. Now I just wanted to go a little deeper about this today's meeting, mentioning about the decision to have also in this meeting of the Club of Bologna, as was done for the last meeting, that was the first meeting, to have not only the chairman that they used to have that are responsible for the different section, but also to have a rapporteur. Rapporteur are Pellizzi Prize winner. So we, as you know, we wanted also to try with the Pellizzi Prize winners to make younger the average age of attendance of this meeting. And also we wanted to involve them as much as possible. In this case, they have to help the chairman in improving the section discussions and also collect the keynote sentence that will be filled by all the attendants. I would like to underline that now also following very request of some of you, thanks to Marco Fiala, it is possible to download from the website the keynote sentence, so you can fill directly and then you can send to Marco Fiala. After collect this keynote sentence, they also have a responsibility to realize and written a brief report of 2-3 pages that will be then published in the Federal Coma journal or magazine, that is Machinery World, and eventually in our magazine. So I want to introduce to you the rapporteur. Rapporteur for section U1 is Christian Birkman. Christian, just get up. Yes, so everybody can see you. No, there's no need a microphone. Thanks a lot. For section 2 is Andriy Yakstul. Andriy, thank you for this job. And for section 3 is Antonio Miranda Fuentes. Thank you, Antonio, for doing this job, and thanks to all of you. So moving to the agenda, starting for this morning. So today will be really a busy day with quite a lot of presentations. So we will start with section 1. Yes, we are close to being time, so I hope to not take too much more time. Section 1 is related to traceability and what is the role of agricultural mechanization in this topic. This session will be chaired by Professor Roberti from the University of Milan, and as I mentioned before, as a rapporteur, Christian Birkman. We will, in these sections, we will have 3 speeches. One is related to the aspect mainly focused on the final product, that is food, as is Raffaello Plugger, that he will speak about traceability, status, and trends. Then we invited here also to present something that probably is not so well known from all of you, that is Global Gap. And we have here Frederic Ludeke, that is also presented what is the request from the retailer in terms of traceability and what could be the also needed from the machinery in terms of data to be recovery and then give in order to promote this traceability all along the chain of the productions. Then we have the last speech that is made from Matteo Masin of CNH Industrial in New Orleans, in Italy, about technological solution to generate traceability in the case of harvesting. So we have an example of what already the machinery manufacturers are doing in terms of try to get these results of traceability. Then we have discussions, as I hope, as always, will be a pretty good discussions with, say, case centers drawing up, and then lunch. And in lunch, I have to stop a second because what I am asking you, if it's possible, is to reduce a little the lunch. As usual, the lunch will be here, just behind the corner. Is a self-service, so I believe you can manage it in 1 hour. Why I am asking this instead of 1.5 hours? Because I would like to give you the possibility at the end of the meeting to have more space for the visit to EMA. So you know, in the present program, you have just 1 hour. If you are able to start instead of 2 p.m. at 1:30, you can recover another half an hour here. So you have 1.5 hours to make the visit to the fair. That is, I think, is very, very important. So please, if it's possible, and this is addressed to the chairman of section 2, that is related to climate change and mechanizations, what is needed in industrialized and emerging countries, so that are Giuseppe Gavioli and Professor Joseph de Bademaker to please try to start half an hour before, and then also everything will be in front of half an hour for all the following part of the program of the afternoon. In this case, because we have not only one but two chairmen, I give the chairman the occasion to present all the topics. Again, we will have a coffee break, half an hour early of what is right here, and then discussions. And then, and this is also something we introduce, is the first time, two additional special lectures. One will be made by Marco Pezzini about the topics that I believe is very important, is the effect in the markets of agriculture machinery related to the conflict of Russia-Ukraine. So we will listen what Marco will mention to us. I'm sure it will be very interesting. And then we have another friend and very kind person that is Alida Belandi from Guarani industry that will speak about Brazil in a circular bioeconomy scenario. So I just want to remember to you, for what concerns today's agenda, that the bus will leave 6:45 in the same place where they make us down from the bus this morning, so where we arrived. So please go there, be there in time, in order not to make too much problems in transfer to the hotel. So then you will have the dinner at the Royal Hotel. Any questions about this agenda from the audience? If not, I can move for tomorrow. Tomorrow also there is a little changement about the leaving of the bus, because in a previous, and probably also, now probably Marco is always very active, already changed the version, but in the previous version was starting the transfer at 9, now we move at 8:30, again to leave you more time for the visit of EMA. So we start a little earlier. As President Malavolti mentioned, Section 3, as he used to have, is dedicated to specific mechanization. In this case, the topics will be machinery for orchard, and will be chaired by Danilo, Professor Danilo Monarca from University of Viterbo, and as a rapporteur, Antonio Miranda Fuentes, that I was introduced before. So also here I leave to Professor Monarca the presentation of the different speakers. I would like to also remember that, as you used to do, and we have done in the last years in the Club of Bologna here in Bologna, it will be organized again by Danilo, a guided tour to the Italian manufacturers of orchard machinery. So if you are interested in these topics, please follow Danilo, and I thanks again him for organizing this guided visit to these manufacturers. So this is mainly about the program. Another couple of slides, then I will finish. I would like to make some recommendations concerning who is attending online and who is attending in present. For who is attending online, and again I say good morning to all the people that are online up to now. I hope you can listen me without any problems. So when you want to make questions, please put your raised hand, that is a tools present in Zoom. Always try to mute your own microphone to avoid background noise. And then when you will allow by the chairman, but through Marco Fiala, our Secretary General, to make your questions. You please have to say your name and present yourself. And then try to be as much as possible short and clear in order to don't lost time. And for what concerns the people attending the meeting in present, please again raise the hand, and then the session chairman will give you the floor. And you can move, if it's possible, directly here, because the camera is only able to move from here to the position where are the management committee, but not to the other big area. So it's better also for people that are following the meeting online to see when you make your questions. I would like also to underline that there is Wi-Fi here. You have the password and the internet connections. I would like also to remember to please fill not only the keynote sentence, but also, as we have done during the last meeting, the suggestion for subject to be presented eventually in the next meeting. So both of these papers to be filled are also available online, so you can take directly by the Club of Bologna website. So I have ended my opening presentation. I really wish all of you a fruitful meetings, and I'm sure it will be happens. So if there is nothing more, and if Marco Pezzini doesn't want to say anything, we can start. So I give the floor to Professor Oberti for chair sections 1. So please, Professor Oberti, if you can move there, and then we can officially open the first section. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you, Marco. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to session 1 of this Club of Bologna. Session 1 is dedicated to the role of technology on agricultural machinery, and that can provide some valuable data for traceability systems. It is well known that data play a crucial role for planning and farm management, and this technology on board of the machines can provide a strategic contribution to this item. Data can be seen as a byproduct that is harvested by a machine during the cultivation process. And in order to have a deeper insight in the value of this data outside the gate of the farm, today we will have three reports, three presentations by eminent speakers. The first presentation will deal with the general framework of traceability systems and the trend that is characterizing the evolution of the traceability technologies and implementations. The second presentation will be a wide picture of the specifications required to farmers and then to the technology that they use when they are on board on the machines that can satisfy the current advanced certification systems and what is the trend of the requirements that are expected in the next decade in crop production. And the third presentation will give us some practical examples of implementation in machines, specifically harvesting machines, that are made available by the industry. And so starting from the first presentation, I introduce you Raffaello Plugger, who is Director General of Tecnoalimenti. Tecnoalimenti is an R&D consortium made of about 30 food industries in Italy, very relevant to the food market, food processing market in Italy. And Tecnoalimenti acts as a think tank for providing innovation and as a research network between industry and research centers. Mr. Plugger will give us an introduction about traceability system and giving a perspective view on that. Please, Raffaello Plugger.
Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity to address this speech to all of you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to Roberto for organizing and inviting me here. It's very honorable, and I'm delighted to be in this context and to hear all this reality that I didn't know before. I will deliver now some food for thought. This is at least what I would like to do and hope to do, in a way that to bring new insights and new ideas. Probably not all are new because you are very much specialized, but anyway, some way of approaching and understanding the traceability from the side of the food industry. So actually I'm a forest agronomist as background and food economist. And I'm director of Tecnoalimenti since some time, so let me just introduce you briefly Tecnoalimenti. This is a research and technological organization for the food industry, consisting of 30 industries or companies and the Ministry of Research. So you see the brands of the companies. Some companies also include the primary production, cooperatives, but we have also other companies which are only in the last part, machineries for the food industry and distribution and so on. So all the food chain is represented. We are 40 years in the market, so we have 40 years of history in innovation for the food industry, and are also a think tank that we elaborate some advanced thinking, sometimes ideas that we discuss then with the food industry. And this made us acquire a wide network of contacts, and we are present in clusters, national and European clusters. We are present in platforms of different technologies in different sectors, because the idea is to see what is going on in other fields and bring towards the food chain. This is our main goal. So let me now go back to traceability. So traceability, the origin of traceability. Now, if you think, you for sure, many of us have the experience, in the 90s happened a series of incidents in the food chain that caused public debate. Actually, traceability was present already before as an efficiency tool inside some food industries, but it never arrived to a public debate. The EC responded to this public debate by revisiting the food law, introducing the famous 178/2002 regulation of traceability in the food chain. But this public debate raised different ways also to understand traceability and to define the purpose of traceability, depending on the point of view. So this is interesting. I just copied here some definitions of the purpose. You see, the first one is very practical: track and trace the foods and record the history of an item. This is actually what we think that traceability should do, also according to the legislation. But if you see the other ones, they are much more fluid. The ability to formally identify the relations between components of a product, or linking information flows to the physical flows. So this is an interesting theoretical approach to traceability that we will pick up later in my presentation. And then counts the growing complexity of product development. So, of course, the food industry is getting very complex, and it needs food traceability control all the events that happened during the food chain. But from the point of view of the regulatory framework, we see here what is actually, which are the regulations that food producers are facing. There are some mandatory regulations, which are based on the European regulations, and voluntary ones, as you well know, ISO and IFS and so on, and then voluntary schemes according to what somebody wants to propose. Those ones related to traceability are those ones circled in blue. So you see, traceability nowadays is very much included and incorporated in all the regulation of the food industry. The most important is, of course, Regulation 178, that if combined with ISO 22005 of the 2008, sorry, represent the best scheme for a food business operator and in the food chain. So these two, the 178 and the 22005, are the two, let's say, the two main issues that a business operator should follow to be compliant and to be to have a nice production. Sorry. Okay, so. What are the benefits of traceability? Now there are different levels of benefits of traceability. The impact of traceability is to reduce mainly the cost of the recalls. Now the recalls in the market are really expensive actions. They cost about from 1 to 8 million euro each recall, and in Europe there are approximately 1,400 recalls every year. So you see, this heavy burden for all the food chain. So this is one, avoiding or reducing this kind of cost is one issue. The other one is fighting counterfeits. Also here, from 5 to 7% of the produce in Europe is counterfeited. This is a damage to the production of 500 million euro. So you see, also having a tool that is avoiding, that is fighting against counterfeits, and that is reducing the cost and increasing the speed of the recalls, has a lot of benefits from, of course, public health, but also brand image, inventory tracking, client confidence and trust, and so on. But this is not all. Traceability can also increase the value of products in the eyes of the consumer. An example is the PDO and the PGI schemes that represent about 5-8% of the foods sold in Europe. So having a tool that is making confident the consumer that he is paying more for something that has actually this value, this is another very important benefit of the concept of traceability. Tecnoalimenti participated in the last 20 years to many national and European projects related to traceability, but related to evolution of the concept of traceability. Just not a couple of days ago, I was in Jordan for the project Med Food TT Hubs, where we are setting up with this European project a network of traceability hubs across the Mediterranean in order to facilitate for the SMEs and facilitate for the producers the import-export of foods. These projects are really important projects. Everyone has its own different approach to traceability, and this participating and also leading this project gave us an insight and made us witness the evolution of the concept of traceability because it evolved, and I would like to introduce you to this evolution that happened. Now, food traceability is the core idea that started because of these needs that we could hear before. But it evolved during time. New concepts emerged in these projects related somehow to traceability. So one is the food chain integrity concept. This is to guarantee the genuinity and the absence of manipulation along the food chain of the product. That's a new concept. It's different. This involves the food chain. Food defense. Food defense is to prevent deliberate adulteration by humans. So of course, think about terrorism, think about misomaniac people, about unloyal employees. This was developed strongly by the FDA and by the United States after the Twin Towers attack. So also today, it is developed into some regulatory framework in the US, which is called FISMA, that you want to export, you have to comply with. The other one is authenticity. Authenticity is to guarantee the correspondence of the product with the label. Is the product really what it says it is? This is related mainly to the food frauds, you know. For instance, honey from a particular rhododendron type of flower. You buy it, you pay double the other honey, and you might wonder is it really that honey inside, or is there another cheap honey inside? It's maybe not always related with public health, but it is a commercial fraud. So this is called authenticity. And all this together comes into the concept of transparency, which is now the new concept that also the European Union is pushing ahead. The consumer should be able to get all the information, transparent information, in the moment when he intends to have this, when he requires this information. Not always. We don't have to invade the consumer with huge amount of information, no. But when he wants to have some type of information, he has to be able to get this information. If this is true, of course, the consumer will demonstrate a strong trust and will trust strongly the food chain if this becomes true. And this is the new concept that has to be brought ahead in food. But all this, if you think, all these kind of issues like the chairman already mentioned before, is related to one thing, is related to data. Data is the real importance in all this type of evolution from traceability up to transparency. It all revolves around the availability of data. But in this project, in the project that we participated, that I showed you before, we learned many lessons. So I would like to tell you about 3 lessons that we learned. First lesson is that you need an infrastructure that connects all players along the food chain if you want to have traceability in place. Food chain traceability, I'm speaking, this is the real traceability. Otherwise it's only the traceability inside the company. I'm speaking about a wider traceability. So you need we call it a data highway, that where the data can flow up and down the players. But you need also interoperability of the different systems that connect to this data highway, to this infrastructure. This is easy to say, but very difficult to do. Then second lesson, data integrity. You need reliable data. You need to upload in the system data that are reliable, that are true, not manipulated, not adulterated according to the convenience and so on. So IoT is here of great importance. importance. Because the system works like this. The rule is garbage in, garbage out. If you put garbage in, you have a garbage out, and all the system becomes useless. But you have also to think that the food chain needs also flexibility of the input of data. This is again somehow contradicting what I said before. You need reliable data, but not all players always have the possibility to have connection, for instance, with internet, to have, because you are in the countryside, to have IoT applied, you have to digitalize the data into the system. So this is still, you need flexibility to connect into all the players currently, but you need also reliable data. Of course, this is a conflicting tools. And then digitalization. The management platforms of this data, once the data, reliable data are uploaded, they have to be, of course, managed, handled. You have to regulate ownership, confidentiality, and privacy, which is really an issue that might bring a lot of conflict along the food chain. But it's possible to do it at different layers of privacy level and so on. This is something that can be negotiated along the food chain. Of course, blockchain here now is the tool for this kind of issues. But the biggest lesson learned is this one, is that once digitalization and data acquisition is complete, the farmer can jump, and all the food chain can jump into a new operativity based on data-driven services that supports the enterprise. Traceability, so as you see here, becomes only a tiny aspect of the many other services that data can support, from the production, efficiency of production, organization on the other side, finance as well with smart contracts, and also trade market certification and also traceability. So you see, once this becomes the reality, a new universe of application, of applicabilities present to the food chain. But this kind of, in the same way, the data become also an integral part of the product. Think about this. The food product can also be revisited in terms of layers. You have an edible core with a nutritional layer, which is actually the reason why you buy the product. Then you have a packaging as an outer shell, an outer layer with environmental concerns nowadays. And then you have the label. The label, which is the information layer of the product, which conveys where all data that you pick up and you acquire during the food chain can be displayed to the consumer and also to the intermediate players wanting. So the label becomes the key issue of the food product. Think about already today, some products, the edible core represent only 25% of the cost of the product. Production cost of the product. The rest is all packaging and label. So the huge importance that information and that this outside label layer of the label will acquire. Which are the future outlooks from this point of view, seeing from this perspective? We have 5 outlooks that I will briefly pass. Of course, the first outlook is something which is really familiar to you. This is the data are important for the very onset of the food chain to improve the internal farming processes and decision making, precision agriculture, digital agriculture, and so on. This is all based on the use, the measuring and the use of data, smart irrigation and so on. But here you are absolutely much more familiar than me with this kind of issues. So digital farming is based on data collected in the field. But traceability is also a source of data for the data business. Now the agriculture analytics market is increasing 12% annually worldwide. So this data that you pick up in the field are extremely important extremely important for this type of market, for this type of business. Traceability is a source of data for meeting the needs of the consumers, of the new generations, the Generation X. If you see the compared to the, you can just put yourself in this in this table and see where you belong to. But the new generation, which will be the future consumers in 10 years, to whom you will sell you produce, and the farmers will sell the products, are based mainly to base their decision about the purchase decision about ethical issues, uniqueness, if you see it. They are digital natives, so they are really familiar with data and with information, much more than our generations. So traceability increases the value of the product by providing evidence to the credence attributes. This is another concept. Credence attributes are those attributes of the product that the consumer cannot organoleptically catch. For instance, you cannot taste, you cannot smell, you cannot see. Let's say, for instance, ethics. Ethics, you just have to believe. That's like credence. You just have to believe that what the producer is saying is true. Or 0 kilometers. These are all type of values of the product that the consumer is ready to pay, but he cannot prove if it's true or not. But the producer, with traceability, you can prove. You have the tool to demonstrate and to have evidence, and to give evidence to him that he paid for something that really exists. The same is also environmental friendly, for instance. Or these are all concepts of this type that can be supported thanks to the data and thanks to the transparency. So another one is sustainability, the metrics. What inputs were used, how it was used, where it was used. The consumer cannot know, cannot taste this, but he wants to know. He or she wants to know. So if you have a transparent product, you need to be able to provide this information to the consumer if he requires it. And finally, I'm arriving to closing now. Tools are also getting available to convert traceability into real value for the product. Tools that elaborate the data, artificial intelligence, data analytics, but also tools that can communicate the data to the consumer. For example, B2Site, this is a development owned by Tecnolimenti that we elaborated in the last years, allows to get the extended label. So this means a label where endless information can be included or can be searched by the consumer as augmented reality by framing the real label with your cell phone camera. You frame with your cell phone camera and then pops up buttons that you can push, and you can see the Nutri-Score, you can see the nutritional value, you can see how to throw away the environmental concerns. So you can see videos, you can see marketing, whatever the company wants to communicate to the consumer. So if you are interested in this, if you go to the site of Tecnolimenti, there is also a video that explains much better. So the tools are available for increasing the value of the data that are collected along the food chain, starting from the fields. So what was my message? My message is that traceability originated from a real need, but is becoming a first step towards the full digitalization of the food chain, from the field to the fork. This process is based on the transition. I would say that this process is a part of the transition process towards a new industry model, more sustainable and more resilient, and hopefully also more human-centric, that hopefully we will all witness in our lives still. So this is it. This was my presentation. We are always open to ideas, collaborations with you guys, universities, companies, to try to develop and bring ahead these concepts and to bring, of course, value into our lives. So thank you, and I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pugger, for your wide and extensive outline of the framework of traceability, with some information that are not so familiar to the community of agricultural mechanization. Second presenter, second speaker of our session is Friedrich Lüdecke. Friedrich Lüdecke will give us a global picture of the data framework that are required to farms by market and supply chains at different dimensions. So again, will be very interesting to understand what kind of data and specifications are expected to be provided by technology in the next years. Friedrich is since 2 decades a consultant and a trainer for a Global Gap. Global Gap is the most widely adopted certification system for crop production. And Friedrich is also a farmer himself, so I think that he can provide very valuable examples and insight. Please, Friedrich, the floor is yours.
Okay, so buongiorno from my side. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, Paolo, Roberto, for inviting me, because as usual, I'm the strange person in the room here, talking about something totally different than everybody else. But I got 25 minutes now to show you the world of Global Gap. So what are we doing? Where do we come from? And the question also is, how do you fit in our system? So how is the agricultural machinery part of our system? So as Roberto said, I'm born on our farm where I sort of still work now, and I'm done some degrees in agriculture, and I ended up as a consultant with Global Gap, started in 2004. Now they call me the Global Gap historian, yeah, because we got so many new people there, because when I started, we just had a handful of employees, something like 10 or 20. Now we have 150. So this is the story so far. And my job basically is working on the development of the standard and also the implementation. So the question is, why do we have these standards like Global Gap, and also like we just saw, there's a great deal of other standards available there. So why do we need them? At the end of the day, we are looking for safety. Yeah, it's not just food safety, but it's also safety for the environment, for workers' health and safety. So at the end of the day here, it's the theme is risk reduction, risk mitigation. And this is what we try with our standard. Looking at the activities at farm level and asking the producer, okay, if you apply certain techniques, is there any harm for the environment, for workers' health and safety, or for the food safety? So this is basically where we started. So then a bit going back to history. So in the late 90s, the idea was from European retailers. They asked themselves, okay, we are the ones who are buying fruit and vegetables from all over the world. We are the ones who are responsible for these products because we are selling them to the final producer, but we don't have a clue what is happening at farm level. Yeah. So what sort of techniques are used there. So how is good agricultural practice actually involved in the production of the products we are selling? So then the idea was, okay, how about we sitting together and establishing the basic outlines of good agricultural practice? And so this is basically how we started, not as Global GAP, but as you can see there as Europe GAP, European Retailers Fresh Produce Working Group Good Agricultural Practice. So this was the starting point where we actually then said, okay, retailers have an understanding what is actually happening at farm level when the products they are selling at the end of the day are produced there. So then over time we tried to change the name because if you go to places like the US, people ask questions saying Europe GAP, interesting. So then there's tricky things like barriers of exports and that sort of thing. And then if you tell them this is a private enterprise, they start listening to you. So the idea was to change the name from Europe GAP to Global GAP because over time we were not just working within Europe but also worldwide. The tricky thing was that we have the clothes manufacturer Gap in the US. They didn't like the idea us using the name Global GAP. So at the end of the day, and spending a lot of money with lawyers, we ended up with Global GAP and the 3 dots here. Yeah, so that's the deal we have with GAP. So whenever you see Global GAP, that's the 3 dots. We are not allowed to produce any textile garments, T-shirts, and whatever with Global GAP written on it. So we have to come across. So what we do is we use what we call the G shape, this one here, because there is no Global GAP written on it. So this is basically what we did. And in 2007, we had a conference in Bangkok. I wasn't there because I was giving a training in Pakistan. But I was told in the morning everything was decorated in Europe GAP and all the delegates went into the hall. And then basically everybody then said, okay, now we are called Global GAP. And by the time they came out, the whole decoration was in Global GAP. So this was 2007. And so since then, we have a great deal of growth there. To be honest, we started with fruit and vegetables, and this is still the main topic we are working on. So from all the certificates we are issuing, something like 90% is fruit and vegetables. Yeah. So this is the world according to Global GAP. So everything where you see a country in green, we have valid Global GAP certificates. The ones in black, they don't have any, because if you look at these countries, they are not exporting fruit and vegetables. Yeah? So export of products is the main reason for producers getting involved with Global GAP certification, because having a Global GAP certificate is basically the entry point for a great deal of retailers. So now we have more than something like 208,000 producers in 130 countries. Another interesting feature within Global GAP is we have 2 kinds of certification. We have individual certification, 1 producer, 1 certificate, but also we offer group certification. And the idea behind that is if I'm a farmer owning, my farm is the size of this room. Nobody is interested in the volume of my production. Yeah? But if we come together, 100 producers, 1,000 producers, then we have a volume of products which is interesting for retailers. So we give smallholders a chance to get certified. And from the more than 200,000 certified producers, 2/3 are organized in groups. Yeah? So the majority of producers are small and medium farms. Yeah? So I think this is an important thing, because for a farmer to make a living from the products they are producing is the main thing. Yeah? They don't want any gifts from any NGOs or whatever. They want to do their production. They want to make a living out of it. So as I said, so 2/3 of the producers there are organized in groups. So then the question is, where do we find the producers with the certificates? So if you look there in the middle Europe, we still have about 60%, because this was our starting point. Yeah, so around the Mediterranean, more or less the majority of fruit and vegetable producers are Global Gap certified. So, but if you look at other areas like Asia or Africa or also Latin America, there's a great deal of growth there. Yeah, so if you look, for example, to Peru, there's a great deal of increase in production there. And if you go to the supermarkets these days, you will find a great deal of products from there. So it's not just that we have producers in Europe, and this is also the reason why we are also now calling us Global Gap. So then the next question is, okay, what is basically the core of Global Gap? So we have members, yeah? So I will show you a few, but if I would like to show you everybody, we will going to miss lunch later on. So I just give you a few. So we have retail members. So then we have members who are supplying products like producer groups. And then we have what we call associate members, organization companies who are not producing and not selling. For example, consultancies or certification bodies. So 530 volunteering members, 200,000 producers being certified. Then our products is basically, the core product is what we call the Global Gap standard for the integrated farm assurance. So local gap is sort of a stepstone approach to Global Gap certification. So in countries where we start at a very low level concerning good agricultural practice, we have the situation, there's a retailer who wants to buy local products, but also they want to make sure that good agricultural practice is implemented. So we offer the possibility not to go for the full-scale certification, but to agree between the producer and the retailer about certain topics to be implemented. And so it is open later on either to stay on this level or to step one step up and go for Global Gap certification for the whole standard. And then always there's room on the top, and there we also have what we call the Global Gap add-ons. So on the basis we have the Global Gap standard, but then some of the retailers or other organizations said, okay, fair enough what we have in your standard, but we would like to have more information on certain topics, which is then also audited during the Global Gap audit at farm level. So then we have a list of products, and when I started, this list was rather short and contained all the fruit and vegetables and also livestock and also fruit, flowers and ornamentals, which was known. Basically, this was grown in Europe. Nowadays, we have 700 products, and quite often the question is, what on earth is it? Because these are local products, and they are grown in certain areas there. But when a product is on the list, then you can get a certificate for it. So then, as I said, members. So these are some of the retail members we have there. As I said, so this is just a little part of it. So some of them might be also known to you. The interesting thing is, as I said earlier, we started in Europe, but if you see Ion, they are from Japan, Walmart from the US, Pick and Pay, they are based in South Africa. So really, it's not just an enterprise supported by European retailers, but really sort of a thing which is on a global scale. So then the question is, how is the operating working? So we have what we call the advisory board, which is made up by elected members. So the half of them are coming from the retail sector. So the retail members elect their people for the advisory board, and then from the suppliers, they then elect their people who are going then onto the advisory board. So it's a very democratic system there. Then we have here on the right-hand side, you can have a look once you have a number of a certificate from, and you are not a certification body, so anybody can enter the database there and get the basic information from this producer to check what are they doing, do they have a valid certificate. So then we also do a lot of training to establish a group of people who are then able to actually help producers prepare for Global Gap certification. Then, of course, we have the certification bodies who are then going to the producer, checking the requirements, and then issuing the certificates. So overall, there's about 2,000 people with 172 certified or accredited certification bodies working worldwide. So it doesn't matter where you do your production, if you're in Italy, if you're in South Africa, if you're in Peru, doesn't matter. We have the same rules and they have to supply to the same requirements there. So then we also have technical committees where we discuss certain topics and then feed this information onto the people who are developing the standard. The one important thing is the integrity program. So the situation is, as you saw, we have about 2,000 people going around doing the inspection. So we have to make sure that every single certificate which is issued because this producer is complying with all the rules, full stop. It's not just having a little chat in the kitchen and then going through the checklist and that's the end of the story. Yeah. So what we do is we have our own team checking on the certification bodies. Are the people who are doing the inspection, the audits, are they competent? We go to farms which have been visited over the last 2 weeks and do our own inspection. So at the end of the day, the question is, this is the result from the certification body, this is the result from our people. Is there a difference? And if there's a difference, what are the differences? Are there topics mentioned which should have been picked up by the inspector of the certification body? Or is it something that happened today? Yeah, the chemical store wasn't locked. Yeah, okay, fair enough, can happen. But when the inspection was taking place by the certification body, it was locked, things like that. So then what we also do is what we call benchmarking. So there's a lot of other schemes around there. And they basically say, listen, we are having specific rules for our producers, but also we have the same requirements in Global Gap. So we compare the requirements of this standard, and then we have the recognition. So on the website, you also see there's a lot of schemes recognized by Global Gap. So they have their own logo, they have their own name, but it's like in your computer, Intel inside. With these schemes, there's Global Gap inside. And also capacity building. I've done hundreds of trainings over the last 2 years. Everything was happening online. So we have a mixture now to provide information there. So then looking into reality, what happened with the standard. So here, early days, Europe Gap. You see here, this is version 2.1, October 2004. And this was the standard which was valid by the time I started there. And you can see here, point 1, traceability. Yeah, and we just heard basically the requirement from the EU was then to say, okay, one step down, one step up, to really have an understanding what happens with this product. And from the very beginning, you see this is red. So in the early days, the checklist from Global Gap were in color, yeah, because we have different levels. Level major means you have to comply with all the major requirements. Then there's another one, minor must in yellow, where you have to comply with 95% recommendations in red. Some of you might remember the HP 500 printer. is a desk jet, and the paper, when you printed that out, came out like this. It was soaked with ink. Yeah, so nowadays it's all black and white. Yeah, so there's no color involved anymore, because otherwise you spend a lot of money on your color printers there. So this was the layout of this version 2. Basically, we try to follow the activities at farm level. You buy some seeds, you have a nursery, you select a site, then you do the production, then there's harvest, storage maybe, and then we have also other topics, documentation, traceability, and so on, which is covering the whole production side. So then, as I said earlier, the aim of the standard is risk mitigation. And so therefore, we have a lot of risk assessments in the standard. So the question we ask the producer here, for example, is harvesting. Yeah? So have a look at your harvest process. Is there any point where there's a risk occurring there? Can we do something to reduce this risk to an acceptable level? Yeah, that's personal hygiene. There's also the use of machinery and so on and so on. So this is basically what we have in a lot of areas where we actually then try to establish the situation at farm level. So what is going on there? What is done there? How can we reduce the risk there? On the bottom, you see the trademark from Global Gap, the toilets. Yeah, so from day one, we ask for toilets in the field, yeah, which always causes a bit of a discussion there. The tricky thing now is, you see here, in the old days it was a minor. In our latest version, it's a major. So you have to have a toilet there. Yeah, interesting situation. Yeah. So then, in the very beginning, Global Gap was B2B. Yeah, so business to business, because we are working at farm level. And when the product is sold by the producer, we are out. So we cannot label. So the discussion was always from the producer side, yeah, we are making a great deal of effort. We spend time and money for this certification, but we cannot show our buyers that we are doing this. So then we have also aquaculture as part of our system. So in aquaculture, you have fish, yeah? And fish itself is not food. You have to kill fish before you can actually sell it as food. So the tricky thing is, you bring the live fish to a slaughterhouse and you get your fish back. But the idea is, if I bring my fish there, I want my fish back, not any fish. So we need traceability. And this is why we established another standard called chain of custody. And when we have traceability from the producer till this product ends up on the shelf, we can do labeling. Yeah. So, and this was the first part where we started with labeling with aquaculture. The next area was flowers and ornamentals, because in flowers and ornamentals we have very short supply chains. In an ideal situation, you have the supplier. Maybe the supplier has two legal entities. One is the producing part of the enterprise, and the other one is the trader. And then it goes directly to a retailer or a DIY shop or whatever. So this was stage number 2, when we had labeling for flowers and ornamentals. So the next step was last year, where we then said, okay, we go away from this individual labels for certain products, but now we have one label for everything. So Global Gap GGN certified farming. And down there, you see this here. And if you go to that website and you bought a product with that label on it, you will also see a QR code on it. And from that QR code, you go to that website, and everybody, all the producers who are working with this label, they have a profile on this website. Yeah, so you can actually see, where does my product come from? Yeah, so here we have the direct connection between the producer and the consumer at the end of the day. So that was a big step for us, because before that we were just invisible for consumers, because it was a business-to-business relation. Now we have to explain to consumers what we are doing, which is quite an interesting task. So then the next one, I said we have also add-ons. Grasp, I will talk about in more detail about that one. Then we have bananas. The tricky thing with bananas is we have one variety which is called Cavendish, and they are under threat by a disease, TR4. We had the same situation in the 60s where all the varieties disappeared except for Cavendish. Now Cavendish is the one on the line. So this standard here gives more information for the producers, phytosanitarian activities and whatever, to make sure that you don't get it. But the bad news is it's spreading a lot. So then we have FSMA legal requirements in the US. We also have a connection between these requirements and our ones. Then here for feed producers, then animal welfare, non-GMO, also here for animal production. Then this standard is actually coming from Tesco's. We are sort of doing the work for them. Spring is connected with use of water. Biodiversity, I think it's self-explaining. CISA is a standard from South Africa. So this is on top of the normal standard. So GRASP is what we call the Global Gap Risk Assessment on Social Practice, because the point is this started when we had aquaculture in Vietnam. Co-op from Switzerland, they said, okay, we are also interested in the well-being of the people there. So here we look at the relation between the producer and their staff. And the retailers, their line of argument is, we want to know if there's a bomb ticking. Yeah? So nowadays, GRASP is a requirement for most of the retailers in Europe. So most of the producers nowadays are then checked for this standard. So these are basic requirements for workers there. So then the question is, how do you, with all your machinery, come into play with Global Gap? So here we have something which we call impact-driven approach to sustainability. And at the end of the day, this is data collection. Yeah? So we want to have a good understanding what happens at farm level. And for producers, for flowers and ornamentals, this is basically a must nowadays. It's open for producers for fruit and vegetables, but the general idea is to collect information from my production, and then also we sort of collect that, and also this is part of the certification effort we do there. And also it's a possibility for the producers to have a benchmarking with my colleagues. So with my data, where do I stand? So this is my data here in comparison to the other producers. So it's also a benefit for the producer to have a good understanding, where do I stand with my production activities there. So then basically the idea is, okay, we can also then see, okay, what is the outline there? So here you see the normal distribution. But then over time, yeah, it might be then possible also to change the normal distribution to really make sure that we have more and more producers within an area where we say, yeah, this is an optimum use of resources we have there. So then another thing is, we introduced in our latest version, which came out this year, continuous improvement at farm level. And this is exactly where the producer has a possibility to actually pick out certain activities at the farm and say, okay, this is my situation today, and I want to improve this. But there we need data. Yeah? And also, this is a possibility from the machinery to use this information we have there to really then use it to improve the situation there. And this is the old story with the Deming cycle here, plan, do, check, act. This is really sort of happening at producer level, where they pick the topics and they say, okay, this is the area I want to do some improvement. And then if you have reliable data, you can actually then show that during your audit. So just a very short summary of version 6. The new thing is we have customized checklists. It's not one for everybody, so you have a few questions what you do, and then in the background you will have your checklist organized there. Outcome-oriented approach, so basically we give more space for the producer to explain what they are doing. We're not saying you have to do this, you have to do that. The question is, how do you do it? Then digital-driven certification, so the more data we can collect from the producer, the better it is. Then we have integrity, because we check on the certification bodies, and we have the continuous improvement as a new topic there. So then, summary of this little talk here. So the demands of retailers have changed. So in the 90s, this was just traceability, food safety. Labeling was the next one to come. Then we have the add-ons where people then say, okay, we want more information on certain topics. Then social practice is the big thing nowadays because retailers are very much concerned about how people are treated at farm level. Then reliable data collection is on the course now. We need more of that. So this is where you come into play. And then we have our new latest version now, which is actually covering the retailer requirements there. So the last question is, we as Global Gap are ready, are you? But looking at the exhibition, I think you are, because you are providing machinery which can give you, can give us all this information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ludeke, for this inspiring presentation, which I think that can provide good ideas and new insight. Now we have a coffee break. Since we are late on the schedule, I kindly ask you to be here in 15 minutes. So at 40 we will start with the next presentation. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to start again. Please take your seat, please. You're on the bad list now. Thank you. Thank you. So, after the first two, let's say, wide-looking presentations on potential value of data across the gates of the farm, we have now one presentation on practical examples of solution implemented on agricultural machinery that can provide this kind of data. The speaker is Matteo Masin, who is a global manager of precision technology solutions at New Holland Agriculture. Matteo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you, Professor Roberti. Could you hear me well? Okay, yeah. So,
presentation can be. Thank you.
okay, first of all, let me say thank you to the Club of Bologna for the invitation, and I'm very proud to be here and represent CNH New Holland today, but I would like also to say thank you to the Prof. Oberti. We had a couple of exchanges in the last 2 months and on drafting that presentation. So what I've done in the past of my career is less important for the purpose of today, because I've recently joined CNH April 2022, and basically because in the last 5 years I had the opportunity to have experience and to get experience on digital and precision farming and agronomy, and so far in CNH I'm working for the digital platform of CNH New Holland. So when we talk about the harvesters and traceability that the harvesters could deliver to the industry, for farmers, for the food industry, and so on, and we talk about New Holland, we basically have 3 different kind of products in the pipeline. In reality, we are missing one, which is the grape harvester. But so far, we are still developing a technology for track and tracing for the grape harvesters. The project is ongoing, and I would say I'm not yet authorized to deliver information about it. But for the combines, for the forage harvesters, and for the balers, we have, I would say, a very solid foundation in terms of data management, track and tracing. And when we talk about the traceability of the harvesters, I have realized that I didn't put on the slide 2 important words that are essential for the vocabulary of today. So we talk about track and tracing. When I am tracking an activity, it means that I am going from the point A to the point B, and I am tracking what I am doing. So I am collecting the information about the path I am moving on from the point A to the point B. Trace and tracing is when I am arrived at the point B and I want to see what I have done moving from the point A to the point B. So tracking is an ongoing activity looking to the future. Tracing and trace is what I've done in the past and which kind of information are available about what I've done in the past. And when we talk about traceability and tracking also, with the harvesters, because harvesters, of course, are essential if we want to collect the product in the field and to deliver to the food industry, we need to be able basically to answer to 4 questions. What, where, how, and when. So what we harvested, when we harvested, where we harvested. So the location is really important in terms of traceability and tracking. How, that could be a bit confusing how I have harvested, but it is important for the food chain to understand how I have harvested. and when I have harvested. So the time is also essential when we talk about track and tracing. And basically to track and so trace what I'm doing, what I did in the field, we have different kind of sensors, embedded sensors on our harvesters. It doesn't matter combines, forage cruisers, or balers. And those sensors are delivering to us, are giving to us basically two kind of informations. So we can get from the machines the count data, the count bus data, that are basically the speed, the fuel, the engine RPM, the engine load, the oil pressure, the oil temperature, all those data that are related to how the machine is working. And then we could get also, thanks to other embedded sensors, the yield, the moisture, and the quality. And those two kind of sensors, those two kind of data, with a GNSS receiver could allow us to track and trace in the data. Why the GNSS receiver, so the GPS receiver basically? Because we can link all the data the harvesters are producing to a GPS position. So when we talk about the harvesters, and we consider 1 hectare of surface, based on the kind of harvester, based on the size of the header, based on the speed, we can collect from 500 to 1,000 data points per parameters per hectare. So if we talk about the speed, I could have potentially 1,000 data about speed, and all those data have a GPS position, longitude and latitude. And so 500 to 1,000 data per parameters. So I could have 1,000 data for moisture, for yield, for quality, for speed, for fuel consumption, for engine load. So all the parameters that the harvesters are producing. And then all those machines have on board a modem, this more or less the same one that we have in our smartphones. And thanks to those modems, the harvesters' machines can send the data to a cloud. So we have in New Holland a cloud service that is receiving, collecting, and translating all the data that the machines, the harvesters' machines, are sending to the portal. And our portal is PLM Connect. PLM is the acronym of Precision Land Management. And the portal PLM is able to transform all the data the machines are sending to that portal, because you know that we have GPS coordinate there, GNSS coordinate there. The portal is able to transform those information on a map, on a layer that you can visualize with your computer or with your smartphone through a specific application. So it is quite easy, I would say not quite easy, it is very easy to have at your fingertips all the informations that the harvesters are delivering to the portal, and very accessible by using your computer or a specific application. So the portal is basically transforming and translating, like the Google translator is translating the information from the field in a map that you can visualize on the portal. And then we have also a system which is open to different kind of machines. So if we have competition machines, so if a farmer has New Holland harvesters, but also competitors harvesters, we are able, through our portal, to get the data from those different harvesters thanks to API connection. So within our fleet, we are able also to get the data from different kind of manufacturers. We can, as I said, the machines are producing different kind of data, based on the parameters that the machines are basically sending to the portal. So I can display a yield layer. This is, for example, the corn silage yield layer. Red means low yield, blue means high yield. But I can not only display the yield, I can have a similar map for the moisture, a similar map for the fuel, a similar map for the engine load, a similar map for the speed of the forage harvester. So all the parameters that are arriving to the portal could be potentially and are transformed to a layer into a map. And then we have also, and we are very proud about it, and I'm very proud about it, we have also the opportunity with our harvesters, all the 3 harvesters that you have seen at the beginning of the presentation, combines, forage harvesters, and balers, to add a quality layer. So we have a NIR-based technology on board, and we can add, we call it NutriSense, and we can add on top of the yield, of the moisture of what we are harvesting, the quality of what we are harvesting. And so we could have the protein content, the starch content, the ashes content, ADF, undigestible fiber, digestible fiber, and the crude fat. So we can add on top of the yield and moisture, which is important. So when the farmers has to get money, get paid for what they are harvesting, of course, yield and moisture are 2 important parameters. But when we talk about quality, quality is also important. It is important for corn and soybeans. It is important for wheat. You know very well, farmers are getting paid for wheat based on the level of proteins. And so if we are able to show them, to show to the food industry which kind of protein, level of protein farmers are producing, that could be really important and could give to the growers really good information and benefits. And so this is, for example, one of the map we can display, and this is the map of the ADF content of corn silage. So basically the undigestible fiber of the corn silage we harvested. Red means low ADF, blue means high ADF, so blue means less digestibility. And we can have a look to the variability of our fields in a completely different way versus only yield and moisture. And we could provide more information about what we are harvesting. But I was talking about wheat, and farmers are getting paid by the level of protein also. So this is a wheat field, but in our portal, thanks to the sensor I was talking about, we can have not only the yield, we can have the starch content, and we can also have the proteins content in percentage on a dry matter content. So we could know, I would say basically square meter by square meter, exactly the level of protein in percentage versus the dry matter content. And as you can see, as the bibliography said, we could easily demonstrate with those kind of devices and tools the level of proteins, the percentage of proteins is I would say the opposite of the starch content. So where we have less starch, we have more proteins, and when we have high starch, we have high proteins due to the physiology of the wheat when we are at the tasseling time, intaking nitrogen, delivering nitrogen to proteins instead of starch. So, but for the benefit of the traceability, when farmers are delivering what they are harvesting to the elevators, to the storage facility, they can demonstrate and they cannot manipulate. This morning we were talking about the data manipulation. They cannot manipulate those data because those data are coming directly from the machines and we cannot touch those data. We cannot modify those data. So there is, I would say, a kind of blockchain, yeah, between the machines and the portal who is displaying those kind of data. So we cannot manipulate those data for yield, protein, starch, and so on. And talking about the balers, you know that we are in an area, we are close to an area which is really important for Parmigiano-Reggiano. Of course, Bologna is not part of the Parmigiano-Reggiano area, or at least not all the Bologna province is part of the Parmigiano-Reggiano area. But when you are harvesting or collecting alfalfa and you need high quality alfalfa for the dairy cows that are producing milk for the Parmigiano-Reggiano, the quality of alpha is really important. So we can offer to our growers the quality of the alfalfa, and some of our growers are getting paid by the protein level of the alfalfa, but also based on the ashes content of the alfalfa. So if they are taking let me say, too much soil when they are baling. But on top, we are offering them another solution to track the bales. I have put in the title of the slide, every bale counts, because really we are able to display in a map the dropping point of the bales. So here you can see this is the third cut of alfalfa 2022. So we have all the bales, first cut, second cut, and third cut we made on that specific field. So we could know exactly the dropping point of the different bales, the weight of the bales, and even the moisture of those bales. But then when we have baled those bales, we have also to fork that bales and to put on a trailer in order to store the bales under the shed. And so the operator in the tractor or in the telender who is, I don't know how to say in English, forking. Yeah, you know what I mean. Is okay, I would use forking. I don't know if it exists. Maybe I am creating a new word. When the operator is taking the bale, by using the mobile application, he can see where the bales are, and he can zoom in, and he can see for that specific bale he has in front of him some of the characteristics. Particularly, we can see the moisture. And you know that when we are baling alfalfa, the moisture could change very rapidly due to the humidity in the air. So when you start baling 10 in the morning and you close 2 p.m. in the afternoon, the moisture of the bales could change dramatically from 12% to 24, 25%. And so the operator had the opportunity to see the moisture content of the bale he has in front of him and to store in the trailers separately based on the moisture content. And moisture can drive the quality of the alfalfa. So we can deliver or we can store under the shed different batches of alfalfa based on the moisture content. So we are not used to think about the balers as harvesters that could provide traceability, but definitely we have solutions to provide traceability and information about the balers that farmers are baling. And when we talk about traceability, this is not, that slide doesn't refer only to the traceability from the forage harvesters, but in our system, we can store all the data that the ag equipment are sending to that portal, because the tractor are sending the same information, and when the tractors are connected to isobus implements, they can send also the information that are coming from the isobus implements. So we can display, as we have seen, yield and quality map, but we can display fungicide application, fertilizer application, herbicide application, and even tillage practices. So we can, I don't want to say certify because the tool is not yet certified, but if we have a tractor with an isobus implement who is able to detect the rate of the fungicide I am applying, I could demonstrate, if I were a farmer, I could demonstrate which fungicide I have used, which rate, which water volume, when I have done that application, and in which area I was applying that fungicide or another one. And the same for the fertilizer, the amount of nitrogen I have used, and when I have applied that fertilizers versus the rainfalls I have, if I have to demonstrate that I was applying in a, I would say, more holistic approach, the fertilizers versus the rainfalls versus the crop needs and so on. So I can really demonstrate a 360-degree the story of my field and trace the story of my field. Not only the last operation I've done, so the harvest, but also since the beginning what I have done in my field. I could show, I didn't know, I apologize how to call in English disciplinare di produzione, but if I have rules, if I am a farmer and I have to produce that crop by following specific rules, I could demonstrate with that tool that I am compliant with that rules. So probably so far, we are missing an important information. So we know where our machines are because we have GNSS receivers. They are producing a lot of data. They are sending the data to the cloud portal. We could display all the data. But then, after harvest, the product farmers are harvesting goes to elevators, to the storage facility. So how can I track and so trace what happened from the field to the elevators or the storage facility? This is an important question in order to have a full traceability when I am a farmer and I have to demonstrate 360 degrees what I have done in my fields and where I have delivered my products for the food industry. So this is an important question mark. This is an important question. And we have a solution because thanks again to the GNSS receiver on top of our tractors, if I have a tractor with a trailer I am unloading my corn on a tractor with a trailer that has a GNSS receiver, I can easily map the path from the field to the storage facility and the elevators. And again, in a desktop application or in the mobile application, I would use the word demonstrate the path the tractor did from the field to the storage facility on the same day of the harvesting operation. So I can link the two operations, harvesting and delivering what I have harvested to the storage facility and the elevators. So far, that functionality is available for the tractors, New Holland or competition tractors, it doesn't matter, we can track, but we are close to deliver a new solution for tracking and so trace generic vehicle. So we could potentially track all the vehicles that are able to deliver corn, wheat, soybeans from the field to the elevators and the storage facility. So we can really, I would use again the word demonstrate the path, so what's happening from the field to the elevators. Of course, when the product is stored on the elevators, we could not offer solution for that, but from a farmer's perspective who is delivering their production to the co-op, for example, they can really show and track what they did. So I will go to the conclusions. So far, I would say we are offering a very solid foundations in terms of data. This morning, in the previous two presentations, the colleagues have talked about the fact that the data are really important for traceability, and so machines are essentials. What is going on in the field is essential for the traceability because it's the starting point of the traceability. And with the data that our machines can produce and our system can display, we have a very strong and solid foundation. Of course, we are working to deliver better and more reliable data. You know that the sensors, we can how can I say, improve the accuracy of the sensors, yield, moisture, quality, in order to deliver better data to the food chain, for example. But we are also committed to create added value with those data inside our portal, inside our MyPLM Connect, but as well, our system is open to third-party companies. We already have in our portal third-party companies that have decided to work with our data. So they are taking our data, they are taking the farmers' data that are coming from our machines, and they are using those data to provide different services to the farmers or to the food chain. So our system is open to those companies that want to develop specific APIs that are based on the data the ag machines are producing. So we are working on both ways, improving our portal to offer better solution for traceability internally within our portal, but we are really also open to new developers that would use the Ag data, the Ag machine data to provide more and different services, talking about the blockchain also. So that's it basically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for this quite in-depth while exhaustive presentation on practical solutions that can be found on the current machines and the plans that are probably ongoing. So now I would like to invite all the members to ask questions or comment or suggestions. We will take note about the priorities. You are kindly asked to come to the stand for the camera. Sì, grazie. For the camera and for the online broadcast of the questions. And so we collect some questions and after ask to the presenters to, So Professor Febo. Schuller.
Yes, good morning. I have just a simple question for the three persons who presented their paper this morning. The question is, do we need a new generation of farmers able to apply all these new technologies? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Febo. We collect some questions and maybe, or one by one.
It's up to you.
Yes. So the first question is very clear and very deep indeed. Yeah, it's a bit strange probably. Maybe we just use the phone, the microphone.
Can you leave a microphone to the speaker, please? Può lasciare il microfono se lo gestiscono loro.
Sì, se no è troppo.
A very good question. Because obviously we have the situation for us as the standard owner that we are not just operating in Central Europe and more developed countries. Yeah, so we cannot expect everybody from these more than 200,000 producers to actually use up-to-date machinery there, because at the end of the day, the requirement is, if we talk about application of fertilizer, for example, that you calculate the amount of fertilizer first and then you actually apply this amount of fertilizer to your field. How do you do it is a different story. Yeah, so I remember my father doing it by hand. Yeah, and also then if you do it by hand, you also have an understanding where do we need more, where do we need less. At the end of the day, with a new machinery, this is GPS guided. Yeah, you do the same thing. So the new generation of farmers is already there. Yeah, so we see that nowadays, if young people decide to become farmers, they make a decision. Yeah, it's not just like in the old days, you are the son, the oldest one, and you take over the farm. Yeah, so it's a decision they make, and they see what their friends are doing, what sort of money they are doing, earning, and what sort of work they do. So it's a decision the farmers make, and I think the new generation of farmers is already there, and they are very much connected, yeah, with technology. Yeah, even if you go to places like Kenya. They have an extended system for information transmitted by mobile phones. Yeah, even with the old ones, yeah, the old Nokia, yeah, no smartphones or whatever. But this information is transferred. Yeah, so from that point of view, I think we already have a new generation there. But the need is not for everybody because they cannot afford that to have modern technology there as far as machinery goes.
Thank you. Do you want any comment?
Okay, thank you. It is really a good question and a key question. Probably, for sure we need young farmers or new farmers generations, but we have also to change the mindset. We need also to change the mindset because I spent 2 days on the New Holland pod yesterday and the day before, and I've seen some young farmers that they were really taking care about the iron, the steel, the tractor, and they were not caring at all about the technology we have there. So we have more, I would say, mature farmers that are more mature also from the point of view of the age, that have the right mindset and they are approaching the technology on the right way. But at the same time, we have young farmers that are iron oriented, horsepower oriented, and noise of the noise of the exhaust oriented. So we need really, this is thinking about also the electrification. It will be a mess for them, the electrifications. And so we need really to change the mindset and to educate the new generations. And probably in Italy, we are still, if I refer to Italy, we are still at the beginning of the early adopters. But this is mandatory for the future. That is the solution. And of course, the technology or the adoption of the technology for the row crops and the cash crops is more related to the size of the farm. So the big farms are more committed to that than the smallest one. But yeah, for sure, young farmers, but I would say right mindset, and we need to educate them.
Thank you. Schuller, John Schuller.
No, you can stay there.
Okay, let's move. We have a second microphone, perhaps? Oh, no, he has. Sorry.
So my question is for Mr. Pruger. When I buy a fruit or vegetable, I have a sticker on that. Would it be worth more if we would put that sticker on instead of at the processing plant right when we harvested it? So we'd have a traceability through the system that would be well guaranteed. Similarly, for Mr. Massine, on the baler, would it not make sense, since a large bale represents a lot of material, would it not be sense to put an RFID tag automatically on the bale to ensure more reliability in the traceability in case there's some problem?
Okay. It's working.
Yeah.
Yes. So the fact is that it's not so much a sticker, it is the fact of you have to, on one side, to acquire the information, and on the other side, you have to provide this information for adding value along the food chain until the consumer. So it's very important that the information, like we could hear in the speakers, is as much as possible acquired from the very onset of and very beginning of the food chain, which is on the fields with the machines, with IoT and so on. And this information then is then available in the stickers also at the end of the chain, of the final product, and can be acquired through these stickers or until the information that goes from the very beginning. So I would say it's the topic of the food chain. This is the main issue.
I would say really thank you for the question about the RFID tag, the radio tag. Because indeed, in the past, we had in the product validation that solution. So we were developing a solution to put a radio tag on each bale and really to be able to track every bale under the shed and to say that bales was coming from that field on that days and so on. so a full traceability. But I have to be honest and transparent. We were in the validation process, and we were having some issue with the radio frequencies and some issues with the tags. Sometimes we were missing some tags in some bales. So we, instead of going live and to offer that solution to growers that need reliable solutions, we have decided to continue the product validation, and probably we will be able to deliver that solution in 1 year or so. So that solution, the radio tag, is on our pipeline, and we are committed to deliver it probably 2024.
Thank you. Dr. Munach.
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank all the three speakers for the very interesting contributions. And my question is also addressed to all of these speakers. You collect a lot of data. And on the other hand, we have very strict laws about personal data protection. And do you see any conflicts, or do you already have experienced some conflict between these two different things?
Regarding this, the information which is collected is not personal information, so I think this is not so much, because if you record information from the field, from the proteins, it's not personal information, so I don't think it goes inside that law, unless you profile the consumers.
The name of the driver of the machine is not included in the data?
This I don't know. This I, no.
Okay, yeah. So when farmers are signing for the portal, so the PLM Connect you have seen, they have to sign the EULA. I don't remember exactly the acronyms of the EULA, but basically they have to agree that they agree to deliver some of information on a privacy standpoint to third party. And in the portal, or the data that the machines are generating are following two different flows. The first one is about the tractors or the harvesters parameters, like notification, alerts, maintenance services, and so on. So the dealer, if farmers agree, if the farmer agrees, the dealer is able to see some data about the machines in order to provide better services. From the ag data point of view, when the data are arriving to the portal, of course, we have the name of the field, the name of the grower, the name of the driver. So those informations are there, but those information are not available for CNH or New Holland, so we cannot see those informations. Only the grower or the contractor can see those information. So from the protection, data protection, privacy standpoint, the farmer could decide who have access to those kind of data. So we don't have, from a CNH perspective, the possibility to see the details of those data. Of course, we know how many machines we have globally connected, but we don't know the details so deeply. I don't know if I have provided the right answer.
Josse de Bardemaker. The microphone is there.
Thank you. I think it's very nice presentations, and they can give you some reason to think about it. First question, I have two parts on that. The first question, I saw the meta food data with the meta food product, which is basically the yellow part, which is your apple, and then you have all those big things around it, the packaging, the labeling, and all those things. They're becoming much larger in cost than the product itself. That's part of where we go. So who's absorbing that cost? Is it the farmer or is it the retailer? That's one question. The next one is then, on those data, you say indeed that the data are only available, the identification data are only available to the farmer. But I'm a farmer and I want to buy a new machine and I need a loan. And the bank will say, I need all the data of your farm. And you say, well, I cannot give them with my name. Well, you won't get your loan. So basically, you're in a weak position because the data are available somewhere. And that's the thing where we have to be careful about.
So regarding the Meta product, of course, it is, the idea is that if you give more information, so at the end, you are able to add value and to sell the product with a higher marginality. So in that case, of course, the added cost will be shared between the parts. I mean, this is a negotiation of how it will happen, and this is difficult to say who has, probably not only one part has to take this cost, but of course also the consumer will have to pay for this because also it is a service to the consumer itself.
Okay, yeah. So it is again I believe it's about the farmer to give to third-party company like a bank. I don't want to say if a bank is a third-party company, but okay, it's about it's up to the farmer to decide who has access to those data. So and never we will provide farmers' data, or at least what we can see from the point of view of farmers' data, to third-party companies, because we are not allowed, it's not part of the EULA agreement. So, so we have very restricted rules about data sharing and data privacy. And for example, if we talk about the Agricoltura 4.0, so the subsidies that Italian farmers are getting for buying 4.0 machines, so connected machines, when the consultant are offering services to farmers to certify that they have bought a 4.0 machines, of course the farmer, not CNH, the farmers have to demonstrate to the consultant, to the Italian government, that the machines are connected, the machines are sending data, and so the farmer is the one responsible to show to the consultant the portal I've shown you, and to show that the machines are sending data and the portal is sending data back to the machines. So it is really up to the farmer. The farmers are the owner of the data 100%.
Thank you. I kindly ask to be short in answering, because we have a queue of a lot of questions. Paolo Gai.
Thank you for the very interesting presentation. I have a very quick question. Do you think that blockchain will be the technology for the next future for implementing those data highway we need for multi-step traceability and transparencies?
Yes, if it's addressed to me, yes, I think this will be for sure the technology which is also making a way that the data cannot be changed. So for sure it will be, according to me.
Yeah, and talking about that highway, I will go just back again to the privacy. I was talking about API integration potentially for blockchain. So companies that are making application for taking the data from the machines. Again, the farmers has to sign for the services of the third-party company. So he has to link the New Holland account, the CNH account, with a third-party company. So we are not providing directly those information. It's the farmer that allow third-party to see those data and to allow that highway data as we potentially could have.
Very clear. Thank you. Professor Renius.
So just one point.
A short question.
About sort of blockchain, because if you ask consumers, are you prepared to pay a bit more? Yeah. So quite often the answer is, if I see that this more is ending up at the farm, at the producer, yeah, who is actually producing this product. So blockchain would give us the possibility to actually follow this trail of the money and say, okay, if I at 10 cents per kilos of bananas, and I can actually then prove that this money is ending up in the hands of the producer, people might be able to actually then accept that. Yeah, and also coming back to the question of data collection, we have data from 200,000 producers. Yeah, so and every single producer is signing a statement. Yeah. Because the producer is the owner of the product, of the data. And also there's a document on our website where you can see how this operates and who can see what. So we need the agreement from the producer to say, okay, this information is made available by us to certain parties. And that's the only way things can work. Thank you.
Very clear, thank you. We have one online question that I kindly ask Marco to for the attendance. I'm sorry for the waiting, but there is a long list, and now I'm trying to trace all the, all the queue.
Andrea? Yeah, thank you very much. I think that my question was also for Matteo Masin. So the situation about who owns the data, because not only the mistrust of farmers in this topic is quite important. Also the question some farmers are telling, who is participating on data business, because data and informations they have also more and more a market value. And so the question would be how you plan to meet the different expectations and interests of farmers and your customers. Thank you.
Yes, please, Masin.
Okay, if I correctly understood the question, so again, from the data perspective, if we have data stored in the account, in the farmer's account, and we have a third-party company who is developing a solution, a new solution by using those data, so making business with those data, and if the name of that company is a company, farmers has first to have a relation with the company A, and he has to create an account with the application or to make business directly with that A company. When farmers are doing direct business to a company, the A company is able to retrieve the data from our machines and from our portal. So it is true, there is a very, I would say, fragmented market so far about companies that are making APIs by making business with farmers' data, but they can do business only if farmers allow them to take those data.
Thank you. To Chen.
Thank you.
Zhang. Thank you.
First of all, I think this is thanks for the organizing committee. This is a very interesting topic. Finally, to link the data with the mechanization. Before we talk about data collection a lot, but then never link that to mechanization. I think this is a very good move. My question here is, when I talk to many farmers, and they always ask me, we collect so much data, what are the use of that? Okay, and then we compare this with the machine control, okay, for automation per se. When we use machine control, we collect the data is immediately used back to control the machine. But when we have production in agriculture, we collect those data. How can we feed back those data to control the production operation, to get the desired output from that? Now with your machine, you have the capability. With the traceability, we can measure the final product. But how to utilize those data back to control the operation system?
You mean how to control from a farmer's practices perspective? So yeah, so the system you have seen this morning is able to get the data from the machines and to display the data, but we have functionalities there that we didn't see today that are able to drive farmers to take decisions. So we have tools that could analyze the data, that could prepare variable rate prescriptions that could create reports per field, per varieties, per parameters. So that tool could display the data, but also help farmers to take the right decision. Of course, the company doesn't have an agronomy background, so we are not teaching farmers about how to use those data specifically field by field, but we are providing them the tools and the data to take actions by themselves or by using consultancies, agronomists. And talking about the automation, sorry if I'm taking too time. We already have automations because, for example, our balers with the ISO/BUS3 protocols are controlling the speed of the tractors based on what they are harvesting. This is a very interesting application, but it takes time to explain. And for automation, the portal will be a driver for full autonomous tractors, so that the real-time data the portal can get from the machines could allow the portal to drive the machines autonomously in the field. So we have also the opportunity to see and to exchange real-time data.
Thank you, Professor Renius.
A question to Matteo Massin. What about combination of the traceability system with predictive maintenance and repair? I think some technical measures, some technical systems could be used for that, and your company had a few last year or some times ago presented some progress on predictive maintenance and repair, and what about the combination with that what you presented in your very nice presentation?
Yeah, so far in the portal, we didn't see this morning, we have a section which is dedicated to the fleet, so to the machines, to the iron and the technology applied to the iron. And we are offering to farmers and dealers the opportunity to see if we have alarms or notification or maintenance services. They could see which machines need attentions, which machine need a service, which part we need, which kind of alarm. We have different grade from green, yellow to red alarms in order to really drive the dealers to provide the right services and the right maintenance. What we didn't release yet, and we could potentially release based on the utilization of the machine, what potentially could be the impact on service and maintenance. For example, if I have a tractor who is running 300 hours in the field with the PTO at 100% versus another tractor who is running 300 hours, the PTO are 80%, I could have a different impact on the two machines, and I could predict potentially what could be the impact of the PTO 100% in the 300 hours tractors versus the other one. So potentially, thanks to the data and artificial intelligence, we could deliver algorithms that could predict the failures and the alarms.
Thank you. Wegener?
Thank you. My name is Ali Reza from UC Davis, and I have a quick question about the cost of traceability. As you mentioned, it will come with some cost that will potentially increase the price of product and could potentially make it a luxury feature. So my question is how to avoid increasing the gap between rich and poor and make it available and accessible to everyone, regardless of their economic status.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a very, very good question because, as I mentioned, we are working all over the world and we see all kinds of agricultural systems. Yeah, I would think in the future, I mean, this is just a starting point that we just learned about all the collecting of data. Yeah, so maybe in the future we are not just seeing this in the large equipment. Yeah, maybe we can also see that in smaller size equipments when sort of technology goes on, because if you look back 10 or 20 years ago, technology was at a totally different stage. Yeah, things you take for granted nowadays, because I remember I went to a conference and people said, okay, the next generation of mobile phones will have GPS. So I thought, okay, pull the other one. Yeah, I'm not believing that, but now I'm running through Bologna looking for a place to stay. From that point of view, I think as technology moves on, it might be also a possibility to smaller producers to use technology to generate reliable data, and this is what we need. But there's another expert sitting next to you. Maybe they can tell you.
Yeah. Wegener and Lenders.
I just have another critical question. I was wondering, what is the benefit for the consumer if he spend extra hours during shopping to read all the information we have on the label on the products? And the question is, how high is the percentage of the consumers who really are interested regularly reading that information?
I think.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good question. I'm sorry, I cannot answer that, but the idea is you have the possibility, yeah, because on the product you have a QR code, and if you're interested, you can actually see where does that product come from, yeah. So you have the profile of the producer.
Yeah, but we were talking about the extra costs, and we have worldwide a lot of consumers, and they are not able to spend these extra costs. Most of them.
Yeah, but the extra cost. The point is this cost is basically generated by Global Gap. So the percentage we are charging for the producer is based on the area and on the issuing of the certificate, and that's it. Yeah. So by using the labeling, also there's cost for the organizations which are part of the system, because as I said, we have to make sure that with the chain of custody we can follow the trail of the product. So this is then also paid for this information. Yeah. So the question, if at the end of the day the product with the label is more expensive, yeah, that's the decision of the retailer. Yeah.
Maybe we can move and you can discuss at lunchtime, which is approaching. Landers, please.
Thank you. So, congratulations to the speakers on very good presentations. Raffaello mentioned 7 important words which will cover all of this previous discussion we've just had on data. His 7 words are: who owns the data owns the power. That's it. And so my question originally, before the discussion developed, how does Matteo and his PLM portal share everyone's data with third parties? How did CNH convince farmers to give up their power? And this has to be based upon trust. Now, as we all know, the current flavor of the month is food security within the world. We also know that certain rogue nations within the world are very good at removing people's data. And so my question to Matteo is, how do you ensure that you have good data security?
So if you need, I will start from the last question. If you need more information about how we are securing the data from a legal perspective and the agreement we have when farmers are buying our machines and they are signing for our portal, I could provide you deep information. I will put you in contact directly with my colleagues that could provide you more information, as I am not prepared, or I don't have the right background to provide you those kind of information. So it will be a pleasure for me, if you have a specific question, to address your questions or to create a direct connection with my colleagues. But we are committed to secure those data, and we also apply to the government. We have compliance with the local government rules. This is the reason why, for example, in some countries in the world, the local government doesn't allow connectivities, and so our machines are not sending data to the portal, and farmers are not getting any benefit from the data that machines could generate, because the government doesn't want to allow farmers to exchange data. The reason why basically is because the servers are not in that countries, but they are in foreign countries. But so we have also relations with the local governments in order to be compliant with the privacy rules. Yeah.
Okay, we have just 3-minute rush, because otherwise we'll miss lunch and then troubles will come in the afternoon. Yatzkul, please.
Okay, thank you very much for this presentation. Andrei Yatzkul from Universal Institute in France. I have the question following the one of the reply of Matteo. You mentioned it, the education of the new generation, and can you please develop this point? What concretely do you mean? I think that for the representatives of the university, of academic actors, it could be interesting how we can, what we can do to contribute to this. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. So when we talk about ag machine industry, so far the ag machine industry has a relation with farmers through the dealers. So there is the CNH, there is the dealer network, and there are the farmers. So we are not, so far we are not touching directly door to doors our customers, because our customers are the dealers and farmers are the customers of the dealers. So usually the training the farmers are receiving, they are getting those training by the dealers. So we are training the dealers, and the dealers are training the farmers. This is how the cultural mindset changing is working so far. But we are trying to explore more. You know, we are in a time where the influencer have a lot of power. So we are trying also to use influencer tutorials on the different social platforms. So we are trying to socialize as much as possible what data means and which kind of cultural mindset change we need to progress. So yeah, we are basically trying to socialize as much as we can, and to provide quick tutorials. We will have soon also the opportunity to direct connect with farmers to a specific applications, but yeah, so far is the relation with the farmers is through the dealership.
Mr. Rabin, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to address two questions. Unfortunately, they are going to Mr. Massin, so Matteo, yes, unfortunately, because I have only participated to your presentation. My name is Rabea Haya. I'm coming from the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. You talk about the last mile traceability. I mean, the segment between, let's say, to the field to the storage. From product design perspective, I don't know if CNH is aware. I think so. Yes, you have the segment from your machine to the field where you monitor, for example, some element like, as you said, protein for grain, but also starch. Yeah, and then you have the segment from the field to the storage. But I think the most important component is between now the storage to the customer. Do you think also your company is going to provide those three successive, let's say, product? And if the farmer are already also willing to pay for that, because obviously going through this value chain, will give us to assess more to see where are the loss of quality of those products from the field to the consumer, for example. And I would like to go also more here, not only starch and protein. We have seen during COVID time that zinc and iodine, for example, are two key components. Is that possible to extend also those, for example, data to monitor, to see, for example, in wheat, for example, or barley or other soya, and etc., beans, what are the content of iodine, for example, or zinc? Because also this will guide geonutrition, which is very important. It will guide us to know in which soil we can produce which type of crop, for example, to mitigate, for example, those, let's say, deficits.
Thank you.
The last...
Just one, we are really short in
Okay,
in
I
time.
stop here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can give you, sorry? Oh, yeah. So your question will deserve a very long explanation, but I will try to be go quickly. We are offering for the protein and starch, if we talk about soft wheat or soybeans for proteins or other parameters for corn, we are offering a real-time map. So when the farmer is moving from the field to the storage facility to the elevators, if he is working with a co-op and he is not storing the material by himself, he could say to the co-op, okay, I am harvesting that crop and this is the value of protein. So potentially, if the co-op is organized to store separately the wheat based on the protein content, thanks to the information we are providing, the co-op can store separately the raw materials. We have customers in US and in Canada, for example, that they are storing the production by themselves in their own elevators, and they are storing protein, the wheat based on the protein content. So they have high value up to 40% protein wheat and a low value protein wheat close to 11 or less % protein. So they are storing, instead of blending all what the wheat they are harvesting, they are storing separately the production. So we already have real cases to show you.
Very last question from Dr.
Herman Auenhammer. My question is related to the quality of data. Assuming you have a good calibration in your system, sensor data are absolutely true. But in a lot of processes, we have also manual handwork. And we know we have no standardized worker, and we are not able to calibrate a worker. So we have data with different quality. How can we handle this data in the whole traceability process to be really true for every step within the process?
Okay, so from the machine's perspective, the sensors we have, I have to be honest and transparent. I will verify, but I have to be honest. Those sensors are not so far certified. So the information we are provided are not certified, and we need to calibrate those sensors. And the more we calibrate those sensors when we are harvesting, more accurate information we can display on the map. Potentially, because we have several cases, if you do harvesting soft wheat, for example, if you do a calibration twice a day, you can even reach 2% error on your calibration. 2%. So the yield sensor is able to detect the yield in the field with 2% errors, which is a very low value, a very reliable value. It is the same for the moisture and for the NIR technology, for detecting protein, starch, and so on. It depends on the calibration, how strong is the calibration curve behind. But probably, we need to provide, or we need to go on the direction of certified sensors in order to say those data are certified by the industry, are certified by the manufacturer that produced that sensor, so the data are certified as well.
Thank you very much. Pruger, conclusion
Just
remark.
make a comment. on these questions, which is very interesting to hear from you. But in my opinion, now once all this data economy will be in place, I think this will be a process that goes on, and this will change also the production process and also the business model. So these questions that you are doing, very interesting questions, but if you put all this data into the current way of producing, of making business, probably there is a clash. You have to think that everything will evolve and will change parallelly, and we will arrive to a different way of doing this, thanks to the availability of data and thanks to this data that can be generated and can be used.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting session with excellent presentation and great comments and questions from the audience. And I thank you all for the contribution. It's now time to go to lunch. According to the changes in the program, the session 2 will start at 4:45. So see you here in 1:45. 1:45. So we have 4. Yeah, it's. I'm just.
Short lunch time. 15 minutes.
So thank you everybody again.